you all the recording after in case any of your team members want to look at it, or if you want to refresh your memory. So it is February. I cannot believe it. I promise, as always, to keep this short and sweet for you. But as you know, as we keep getting closer to testing, there are so many things I want to tell you and so many tips. Hopefully you've been able to stay up with pacing. If you did not make it to last month's meeting, make sure you get the recording to that. If you need it, email me, because I went over the 30-day plan with phase 1 and phase 2 of how to get all of your kids test ready in that small amount of time. So if you need that, let me know. Okay, so as we move into, most people have a solid maybe 30 days until test day, 30 school days. About 4, maybe 5 weeks, depending on when your test is. So I want to go over some of those last minute things you want to make sure you're reviewing and doing in the classroom. For those of you that are new here, I am Lisa Collum. I am the owner and author of Top Score Writing. So I've been doing these monthly meetings since September, October-ish. And if you've missed any, let me know. Also, make sure you're following us on social media and our YouTube channel, because we're constantly putting stuff out. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First, I just want to remind you that you want to make sure as you move towards testing that you are reviewing prompts and how to identify what the prompt is asking you to write about. So we talk about prompts a lot in August, and then all this time goes by, we're teaching all the parts of the essay, and then we start practicing, but we've got to go back to prompts, because if you don't truly understand what the prompt is saying, then your whole essay is going to be off. And some of the prompts can get a little tricky. So remember, in the Top Score Writing curriculum, every single passage set has a prompt and an advanced prompt. And that advanced prompt just is more specific. So if you're looking at the screen, a regular basic prompt would say, write an informative essay to present to your class about alligators. An advanced prompt would say, write an informative essay about why alligators are considered an endangered species. So you can see the advanced prompt's more specific. You're not just writing about alligators, you're writing about how they are considered an endangered species. So just a reminder, go back to prompts, go back to identifying if they're informative or opinion, and go back to identifying what they are asking you to write about specifically. Is it just general about alligators? Or is it about how they're endangered species? So you can take a day and, this could be a whole lesson or just 15 minutes where you are literally just looking at prompts and you're asking your students. You can play games. You can say, hold up your right hand if it's an informative essay, hold up your left hand if it's an opinion essay. You can have them pull prompts out of a jar and have them read it out loud and say what it is. And then ask them, what exactly is it asking you to write about? Is it asking you, and then see what they say, because you want to make sure they're understanding the prompt. Okay, so just a reminder, review prompts. Don't let that go. Don't let testing time come and you didn't review prompts yet. Okay. Now, I've gone over this time management system with you all before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but if you're not using some sort of time management system and you don't have an anchor chart ready, please make one, because we want to make sure our students not only know all the parts of an essay, but can do it in the amount of time they're given. Because there's nothing worse than a kid that knows all the parts, but it's taking a long time for each paragraph and not able to complete it in the set amount of time for your state testing. So as you see on the left, I always say 20 to 30 minutes for actually reading the passages, then 10 to 15 minutes to plan, because you actually are planning as you're reading, so you can kind of combine those. Whenever I'm working with a group, I just say 45 minutes to read and plan, because I teach them as they're reading to be planning and boxing and labeling. Then they need a solid 60 minutes to 75 minutes for writing the essay, and if they have extra time, they edit. Only if they have extra time. I do not want them stopping throughout and not editing. All right, and then on the right side of the screen, I took it a step further, and that 60 minutes for writing, I broke it down about how long for each paragraph. Again, these are give or take 5 minutes. If you need 12, 13 minutes for the I paragraph, no problem, but you're not getting 20 minutes for the I paragraph. It's 3 sentences. Okay, you need your time for those middle paragraphs. So make an anchor chart, be a stickler about this. From here until test day, every single day, time should be a part of your lesson. So whatever you're working on, if you're working on introduction paragraph, Make sure you're constantly saying, okay, guys, it's been about 7 minutes. You got about 3 more to wrap it up. Let's go, let's go. Just be on them about time because you want them to get used to learning how to manage their time and being under that pressure of time. All right, so as we move into these last few weeks and preparing, it's going to come to where you're no longer teaching up at the front a lot, doing whole group. You've got to do a lot of individualized instruction. You got to do a lot of small groups, a lot of mini lessons. And the only way to do that effectively is to know exactly what your kids need to work on. So one of the things I'm going to send you along with the recording are these next few documents you're going to see on the screen. This first one's called the Informal Assessment Checklist. Now, you know there's a checklist at the end of every section that the students use. This one's specifically for the teachers. It has the checklist, but instead of vertical, has it horizontal. And you can put all the student names, and you literally can put a check or an X on the different parts they're doing good on or need to work on. So as they're doing activity that day, you can simply do X's and checks. Let me tell you why this is so important. This is called tracking. Without tracking, you will never know what every kid needs. We think we do. We can give a general, they need to work on middle paragraphs. Most of them struggle with finishing. But if you have X's and checks, you can then build your groups for the next day. So I'll give you an example. When you get done filling this out, if you have 6 kids that have X's for planning, you know the next day that's one of your small groups. And that's your group that you're going to work on planning with. If you have 6 X's for planning and 8 X's for introduction and 7 X's for finishing, you know those are your 3 small groups tomorrow, and you know who you're pulling. It allows you to do specific individualized / small group instruction. You are working on what they need to work on, not a general what you kind of think they need to work on. All right, so you have that informal assessment checklist. I use a checklist and tracking form every single day when I was working with my students in my class. That is literally how I got every single student to pass, because I was able during those last 4 weeks to zone in on what they needed. And I made every single mini lesson, one-on-one and small group specific to their needs. And it allows you to track, because after a few days, you're not going to remember. If you get done with this list and out of your 20 kids, you have 17 X's on elaborative techniques, you know you need to do a mini lesson tomorrow on elaborative techniques. So it really allows you to start zoning in and then saying, am I going to do a mini lesson? Am I going to do small groups? Am I going to do one-on-one? So you will get this checklist. There's one for informative and there is one for opinion. One of my favorite things to use, and ignore the spelling error on here. I always forget to change this, but the one that you get is going to be correct. It says anecdotal notes. This is something that I created, although you can use a blank sheet if you want and just draw your own boxes. But the anecdotal notes are a place where you can put the student's name and then fill up the box with notes. Now you would use this whenever they're writing a full essay. So if they're writing a full essay for 90 minutes or 120 minutes, whatever your state has, that's 120 minutes of you just walking around. Why not use that time to take notes and, quote unquote, score their paper? And that way you can conference the next day. There's no point of taking the papers home that night and grading them. Telling a kid they got a 7 means nothing. Telling a kid your paper was good, you need to work on elaborative techniques and referencing, that's what they need. They need to know exactly what they need to work on. And that's what these anecdotal notes let you do. Okay. So with these, you are able to, as you're walking around, you're going to fill them out. You put the student name. You probably need 4 or 5 of these printed out, depending how many students you have. And you'll simply just write little notes under each box. And by the end, you've probably walked around every kid 20 times. You're going to be able to have an entire box full of notes, and then you can conference the next day. Okay. And I promise you, the one that we send you will not have the spelling error. I can keep forgetting to change that. All right. So besides the informative checklist, the anecdotal notes, it's all about recording and tracking daily. Okay, that's all you can do. I promise you that's the secret to the last 4 weeks. Tracking, tracking, tracking. It's those daily notes, those daily checklists, really being able to figure out what every kid needs. So take notes. You can use this sheet. You can make your own sheet. I used to have an Excel spreadsheet that was blank. I wrote all the kids' names in the first column, and then I have a whole bunch of blank columns. And every day I put the date, and then I wrote in next to each kid's name what they were struggling with that day. I simply put a P if it was planning, an E if it was elaborate techniques, an F if it was finishing. And by the end of the day, I knew exactly what every single kid needed. And again, I form my groups from that. I form my mini lesson or my one-on-one instruction. So whatever form you're using, whether it's the checklist I just went over with you or the anecdotal notes or your own little form that you create, put it on a clipboard and carry it with you during your writing block. Okay, take notes, form your skill groups, your small groups, your one-on-one, whatever it is. That tracking is going to allow you to really figure out what they need and then come up with a plan to make sure they're getting that instruction. Okay, so find a system that's easy for you. Use our documents we've created or create your own. You get a blank piece of white paper and draw your own boxes if you want to. Okay, it doesn't matter. We're just trying to give you things to help you so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All right, the other big thing is you're going to be testing a lot because you want to, that's the only way to know what you need to work on. And if you've been to the other coaches meetings or any of our trainings, I've given you probably at least a handful of ways to keep writing fun so that you can test, but that they're moving around and keeping a little fun for them. And what this is, it allows you to monitor their growth. So with this simple document that you'll also get is where you just put the date and what they scored, and the date and what they scored, and the date and what they scored. And it also has an area that you can put what they need to work on. So now you're able to see that growth. So if you gave a test this week, you can put, okay, they got a 6 and they need to work on P planning. Okay, and then the next week, oh, they got an 8, but they need to work on referencing. There's an R. And that way you're able to monitor, okay, they're growing. And again, those specific skills. If a kid went down, of course, you're going to look at that. Why did they go down? Did they forget something? Did they do something wrong? This tracking allows you to monitor that because you want to see this. They should be going up these last 4 weeks. Okay, and you'll be able to see that. When we don't track, like I was saying in the beginning, you just kind of, you have like this general idea. When my principal used to come in, she'd say, you know, there's like three weeks before the test, and she'd say, where are we at? And I'd say, I'd take out my clipboard and I'd say, all right, out of my 22, I have 18 where they need to be. These 4, this one can't finish. This one is struggling with planning. And I knew exactly where every kid was. I could tell her exactly what we needed. If I didn't have that, I could have given her an answer. I would have said, they're pretty much all there. I got a few things to work on with a couple of them. That's so general, I wouldn't even know what to work on. So with this, it allows you to track. All right, revolving door. This is one of my favorite things to share with teachers. I did this all the time. And basically what it is whenever they're writing in the classroom, you would sit at your desk, or maybe if you have like one of those kidney bean shaped tables or somewhere in the room, and that area becomes the revolving door. Students are writing, and as they finish each part, they have to come to you and get it checked or initialed before they go on to the next part. What I mean by that is when they're done with planning, they can't go to introduction until they've got it checked or initialed by you. So when they're done with planning, they're going to have to come to your table. You're going to have to look it over, check it, and say, now you can do introduction. When they're done with introduction, they're going to have to come back to you. You're going to have to read it. If it's good, check it. So now you can go to T1. It is this constant, all 20 plus kids are coming to you the entire writing block to get each part checked. Sometimes I just give a check and say, you can go back to your seat and do T1. Sometimes I'm like, no, sit down. And we have a 1-minute conference. Listen, this is good, but you forgot to name your 3 topics. I need you to go back and change it and then come back and I'll initial it. So sometimes it's a quick conference, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Sometimes it's just a check, you can move on. This is the best technique or the best strategy when you're trying to really figure out what every kid needs, because instead of writing a whole essay and then talking to them about it, they're doing a small part and then getting it checked by you. And you can have that conversation right then and there if there's something wrong. And they do another small part and they get it checked by you. So you are catching the issues right then and there, as opposed to writing a whole essay and then talking about it the next day. Okay, so think about that revolving door that is coming to your table over and over and over again, getting it checked. Every single piece, planning I, T1, T2, T3, and C. So by the end, they should really have 6 initials, because 1 for planning and 1 for each paragraph. All right, individualized assignments. This is where you really are going to use that tracking and then differentiate and be specific about what each kid is doing. You can pull independent assignments from section 5. For instance, think about this with section 5. It's a resource section. Nothing's meant to go in order. It's just a resource section. You pick and choose as needed. So if you have let's say 3 kids, a small group that's struggling with planning, go to section 5. There's a lesson called planning practice. Do that with that group. That's individualized because they need help on planning. There's one called the I repetition practice if they're struggling with introduction, or the C repetition practice if they're struggling with the C paragraph. So there's lots of extra activities in section 5. Don't forget about these. If you have our digital license, we have a teacher-led video lesson with every single lesson. So if you have a 4th grade digital license, you're getting 110 of these. Okay, so if you're doing small groups and you're working, let's say with 4 kids on planning and you have them in front of you, and you have another, let's say 6 kids that need to work on introduction, pop open a laptop, put one of our teacher-led videos and let us do the teaching. Now you've got 2 quality instructing situations going on. You've got you teaching and you've got the video playing. Use those videos for small group instruction. Use those videos for one-on-one instruction. If you got the one kid that you've taught introduction paragraph to 10 times, and he's still not getting it, put on the video. Okay, and the video always has an activity for them to do that they have to do pencil and paper, and they have to submit it to you. So they can never just say, oh, I watched the video. No, I watched the video. Here's my activity. So you can actually see if they watched it and they did it. So there's always a way for you to monitor, but also make sure that they're understanding it and that they completed it. So use those videos to help with that one-on-one and small group instruction. Okay, checklists, those are at the end of every section. If you go to the table of contents at the end of section 1, 2, 3, 4, you will always see a checklist. Use those checklists. Those checklists can be used for a variety of things. But at this point in the year, the kids should be trained on those checklists and should be able to check their own papers. It literally says under the I paragraph, hook, and then it has a line. They can put a check if they have a hook. 3 topics, closing, and they just check. There are some kids that write their hook and then go their checklist, put a check. Write their 3 topics and go their checklist, put a check. And they just write their essay like that. Either way, it's a great self-assessment tool. I always tell the kids, end of February, early March, I'm not here to tell you you forgot to reference, right? You should be self-assessing. You should be looking at your checklist and checking yourself. I'm here to tell you, you need to write this better, or you need to change it to this, or you need to add this. I'm here to make your essay better, not tell you what you forgot. So train them on the checklist. And it can be used as, like I was saying, they self-assess themselves. Maybe if you're teaching I paragraph, they're just going to take out that checklist and they're going to do the I paragraph part of it. Maybe it's the whole essay. Maybe they're writing one by one what's on the checklist, and that's their guide as they're writing. But use the checklist. I even in the past have shrunk down the checklist so there's 4 on one page, and then I just make like 100 copies and cut them up. And every day I'm handing out checklists, and they're using them whenever we write. Okay, last thing, this is something I made last year for school, but I found it and wanted to share it with you all. If someone asks me, what are like the top things you think we should do for like last minute tips and tricks? These would be it. Okay, I have 2 pages and I've gone over most of this, but this would be it. If you said, well, just what are those things my kids have to know how to do? I've got 30 days. I'm in the middle of your boot camp plan, but I just want to know what are those main things. This is what I would say. The first thing is referencing sources. You know, they have to be specific. Okay. If you are in Florida, they have to be specific. You know, if you're in Georgia, Mississippi, there's some other states you do not have to be specific, but you know your state. Either way, they got to reference. Okay. And they have to reference at least 1 to 2 times per middle paragraph. Organization, they have to organize. Okay. Use the box paper, but you got another couple weeks. That's it. And then you got to take box paper away, because they're not going to have that on test day. So if they're struggling with organization, use the box paper. Other than that, we're done with box paper. They've got to indent and put transition word. That's a non-negotiable. Do not even touch their paper. Don't even put your eyes on it if they didn't indent and put transition words. That's easy. I don't care if you are learning another language or English is your second language, you can still indent and you can still put a transition word because every kid can be taught those simple transition words. They're not going to lose points because of that in my book. Okay, it's way too easy. So our third thing is finish a complete essay with a satisfying conclusion. Again, non-negotiable. They have to finish. Why are you going to lose a point because you didn't finish? If you have not taught the last minute strategy lesson, go to your table of contents, section 5, and teach the last minute strategy. It teaches them wherever they are, when they hear, because every teacher is going to say you have 10 minutes left on test day. When they hear you have 10 minutes left, they're going to finish up one more sentence, one or two more sentences in the paragraph they're in, and they're going to jump to their conclusion. They have to be trained on this. They have to be trained. Oh, I heard 10 minutes left. I write one or two more sentences, and then I jump to my conclusion, because we got to have that complete and satisfying conclusion. Time management, I went over with you all in the beginning of this. You can go back to that if you want to take a screenshot. Tracking students, I spent half this presentation going there. The writing check, that's that revolving door, that daily writing check. The stop scoring is those anecdotal notes. So as they are writing, you are taking notes. Transition words, make sure that they have transition words. We go over a last minute strategy for teaching transition words if kids are struggling is get an index card, write the number 1, 2, and 3. And next to number 1, have them pick their favorite transition word for first. And next to number 2, have them pick their favorite transition word for second. And next to number 3, their favorite transition word for third. I wouldn't do this if it was August. I'm doing this because there's less than 30 days left. And if they're still struggling, we got to narrow it down. They got to pick one, because again, I'm not going to let them lose points because of that. Hooks, remember, keep it simple. No one cares if they're fancy and they're funny. Okay. Simple statement, question. Just make sure that they are not all writing a question. If you have 23 kids and they're all writing a question, that's a problem. You will get flagged by your state. So if you see that happening, trust me, it happened in my class. I saw it, started doing small groups. My more advanced, I showed them 3 or 4 different ways. My middle, I showed them try to change it, sometimes a statement, sometimes a question. My low kids, I was like, you're doing a question no matter what. So sometimes it comes down to small groups. And then of course, those elaborative techniques, just make sure that they are incorporating quotes, paraphrasing, and own thoughts and ideas. All right, so like usual, I threw a lot at you in a small amount of time. I am putting up here all of our email addresses, and you all will receive the recording of this as well as all of the attachments or all the documents I went over as an attachment. If there's anything else that I've said that you need or you have a question about, please feel free to reach out. And then we will have one more meeting like this in March. However, it's going to probably be more of like a question answer session. I will probably give you some quick last minute things, but other than that, I just want to be here to support you as needed. So, all right, I'm looking at the comments real quick. Okay, Jacqueline, I will email you. And then Lisa, can you email me at lisa@topsquared.com so I can reply and have your email? Okay. All right, that is it. If you guys have any questions, again, feel free to call or email. You can type in the chat pod now if needed. Other than that, enjoy your day, and we will see you next month.